Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Dr. Hamid, and our today's topic of discussion is vasculitis. In the last lecture, we have started with our last lecture. We have started with giant cell or temporal arteritis. We have also covered Takayasu arteritis, Behçet disease, and Kawasaki disease. Giant cell arteritis and Takayasu arteritis both are the large vessel vasculitis, while Behçet disease, Kawasaki, and Polyarteritis Nodosa, these three diseases are medium vessel vasculitis. They involve medium-sized vessels, not the large vessels. Okay, we have already covered thromboangiitis obliterans and Kawasaki disease. Today we will start with Polyarteritis Nodosa. These topics are very high yield for the preparation of USMLE Step 1 and Step 2. Okay, so I would highly recommend to have a full grasp on these topics. Now let's start with polyarteritis nodosa. Polyarteritis nodosa is more common in middle-aged males. It is associated with hepatitis B seropositivity. So here I'm going to make a differentiating points between these three medium vessel vasculitis. Behçet disease is more common in males, and polyarteritis nodosa is also more common in males. They are usually in the younger males, while Kawasaki disease is more common in children below the age of 4 years. Behçet disease is associated with smoking. Okay, polyarteritis nodosa is associated with hepatitis B seropositivity. Okay, for Kawasaki disease you should remember crash findings. Okay, that previous lecture is very high yield, go and check it out. Okay, so polyarteritis nodosa is more common in males. It is associated with hepatitis B seropositivity. What are the histological findings we see in patients with polyarteritis nodosa? We will see a transmural inflammation of medium vessels with fibrinoid necrosis. Okay, the transmural inflammation means inflammation of all the layers of vessel wall. Usually the vessels have three layers. The innermost is intima, medium, middle one is media, and the outer one is adventitia. In polyarteritis nodosa, there is an inflammation of all the three layers of vessel wall. Along with that, there would be fibrinoid necrosis. That transmural inflammation with fibrinoid necrosis lead to luminal narrowing and thrombosis. Luminal narrowing and thrombosis in turn leads to tissue ischemia and tissue damage. Okay, what are the how would the patient be present with polyarteritis nodosa? Mostly a middle-aged males you will see in the scenario. Sometimes, not all the times, you will see a patient with hepatitis B status positive. Okay, so what would be the clinical features? First and foremost important is constitutional symptoms. Constitutional symptoms, they are not related to these are the symptoms you usually see in patients with vasculitis. These are constitutional symptoms include fever, fatigue, weight loss, malaise. These are the constitutional symptoms. Then there is involvement of multiple organ system that includes skin involvement. Skin involvement lead to nodules, livedo reticularis. You will see ulcers. You will see purpura. Renal involvement will be there. You will see hypertension, renal insufficiency. You will see arterial aneurysms. Nervous system involvement would lead to headache, seizures. GI involvement leads to mesenteric ischemia. Musculoskeletal system leads to myalgias, arthritis. Okay, so there is an involvement of multiple organ systems. Okay, how you diagnose polyarteritis nodosa? We diagnose this disease by angiogram. We will see aneurysms. So you will see innumerable renal microaneurysms and spasms on arteriogram or angiogram. Strings of pearl appearance. So strings of pearl appearance, yeah, let me show you guys. Let's go to image F. Yeah. So this is arteriogram that is showing strings of beads appearance. Okay, because of the aneurysms. Now, how do we treat this polyarteritis nodosa? We treat polyarteritis nodosa with glucocorticoids and cyclophosphamide. Okay, cyclophosphamide is also used for a lot of cancers. This drug is used in cancers and also in vasculitis. So Um, Again, I'm reviewing some high yield stuff as well. How do we treat, what is the treatment option, first line treatment for uh, temporal arthritis? So the answer is high dose glucocorticoids. What is the first line treatment for polymyalgia rheumatica, which is associated with temporal arthritis? Low dose glucocorticoid. What is the treatment option for Takayasu arthritis? Again, glucocorticoids. Treatment option for thromboangiitis obliterans, because the major risk factor is cigarette smoking, so the treatment is smoking cessation. What is the treatment option for Kawasaki disease? IVIG and aspirin. Remember, this treatment option for Kawasaki disease is very high yield. What are the treatment options for polyarteritis nodosa? Again, glucocorticoids and cyclophosphamide. If you don't know the answer, just know that glucocorticoids in most of the diseases, okay, in most of the vasculitis, sorry. Now moving onwards, we will here, before we jump into Behçet disease, I want to highlight share one some important high yield points as well. So in polyarteritis nodosa, there is an involvement of kidney. Usually, the lungs are not involved in polyarteritis nodosa. You will see lung involvement in granulomatosis with polyangiitis. Okay, we will talk about that granulomatosis with polyangiitis in our next lecture, I guess so. But for now, you should remember that usually the polyarteritis nodosa, there is no involvement of lungs. Okay, and polyarteritis nodosa is also ANCA negative, anti-neutrophilic cytoplasmic antibodies negative. ANCAs are usually seen in Wegener's and eosinophilic with granulomatosis polyangiitis. Okay, so polyarteritis nodosa is ANCA negative. Now, let's talk about small vessel vasculitis, which includes Behçet syndrome first. Behçet syndrome, usually in the case scenario, you will see that the people who are usually affected with Behçet syndrome, they are usually Turkish and Eastern or Mediterranean descent. Most of the times you will see, so that is why reading the case scenarios with full attention is very important. You will see in the case scenarios they will give you that the patient are Turkish descent or Eastern or Mediterranean descent present with this. Okay, is an immune complex vasculitis. That means the type 3 immune complex deposition, antigen antibody, antigen and antibody reaction forms immune complex. So that's why it's an immune complex vasculitis. It is associated with HLA-B51. Okay. For this, you should remember ulcers, Behçet syndrome, ulcers. There will be, you will see recurrent aphthous mouse ulcers, you will see genital ulcers, uveitis, and erythema nodosum. Erythema nodosum is a bumpy appearance, that is a bumpy nodule usually. That this erythema nodosum is seen in Behçet syndrome, is associated with a lot of autoimmune conditions. And one important, most important condition you should remember with erythema nodosum is sarcoidosis. So erythema nodosum is seen in sarcoidosis. These are subcutaneous nodules, very painful subcutaneous nodules, are called erythema nodosum, and these erythema nodosum are associated with Behçet syndrome, as well as you should remember sarcoidosis. Okay, Behçet syndrome can be precipitated by herpes simplex virus infection or parvovirus. Flares last 1 to 4 weeks. Okay, important point related to Behçet syndrome is Turkish and Eastern Mediterranean descent and the presentation, patient's presentation: aphthous ulcers, genital ulcers, uveitis, and erythema nodosum. Now let's talk about cutaneous small vessel vasculitis. Usually occurs 7 to 10 days after certain medications like penicillins, cephalosporins, sulfonamides, phenytoin, allopurinol, or infections like herpes, hepatitis C virus, or HIV. So, cutaneous small vessel vasculitis. From the name, it is very clear that there is an involvement of skin, and there is no visceral involvement, no organ involvement. Okay, so cutaneous small vessel vasculitis is a vasculitis that affects only the skin and no visceral involvement. And how it arises? It typically arises due to drugs. You can see the names of various drugs here, or pathogens. You can see hepatitis C virus and HIV virus. So, number one important point for cutaneous small vessel vasculitis is there is only skin involvement and no visceral involvement, and it is associated with, typically arises due to certain drugs or pathogens. Okay, like hepatitis C and HIV. And the drugs that most commonly cause cutaneous small vessel vasculitis includes penicillins, sulfonamides, cephalosporins. You should remember the names of certain drugs. These are important, okay? High yield. So, how these drugs or pathogens cause cutaneous small vessel vasculitis? So, these drugs act as haptens, they act as antigens. Whenever there is an hapten or antigen, antibody comes and bind to the antigen. That antigen antihapten or antigen antibody complex leads to the formation of immune complex. Immune complex formation leads to the activation of complement cascade. The activation of complement system leads to neutrophilic influx. Okay, and that neutrophilic influx further leads to vessel damage. So first of all, hapten antibody complex hapten antibody combines to form immune complex, and immune complex mediated leukocytoclastic vasculitis. So in on histology, you will see leukocytoclastic vasculitis. Late involvement indicates systemic vasculitis. Okay, you will one important finding you will see in cutaneous small vessel vasculitis is palpable purpura. What is palpable purpura? Now, this is going to be the last thing of today's lecture. So, what is purpura? Purpura are the purple red skin lesions. Okay, these are red and purple color skin lesions. How these purpura formed? When there is this cutaneous small vessel vasculitis, that in the inflammation of the vessel leads to rupture of vessel at some points, and that rupture of vessel leads to extravasation of blood into the skin, and that extravasation of blood into the skin appear as purpura, red purple skin lesions. Okay, so purpura is usually of two types: palpable purpura and non-palpable purpura. Non-palpable means it is not related to inflammation. Okay, and examples of the non-palpable purpura are petechiae and ecchymosis. Palpable purpura means it is related to inflammation. It is inflammatory. So, in the simple words, you should remember that non-palpable purpura is non-inflammatory, while the palpable purpura is inflammatory. Non-palpable purpura, the examples are petechiae and ecchymosis, while the palpable purpura, they are inflammatory, inflammation related, so they are seen in vasculitis, small vessel inflammation like cutaneous small vessel vasculitis, leukocytoclastic vasculitis. Okay, so this is all for today's lecture. If you guys have any questions, you can ask me in the comment sections. Thank you so much.